Hi there, it's time to read another chapter from our book Toys. And this chapter is about playing cards. So let's all listen and learn about playing cards. Pick up a deck of cards and ask yourself a few questions, such as who invented cards? What were the first ones like, and why are there 52 in a deck? Now pick a card, any card. Maybe you picked a jack of clubs. What does the jack represent? Do the clubs stand for anything? Let's read on. The Chinese invented playing cards about 1,000 years ago. There were two types, and they were extremely different from each other. One kind was round and had various number of dots on them. Basically, they were paper dice and used for gambling. The other kind was rectangular and looked like paper money. A game was played with the rectangular deck in which the objective was to end up with the largest amount of paper money. Cards reached Europe during the 13th century, about 200 years after their invention by the Chinese. In Europe, they were called tarot. European tarot decks contained 78 cards. In time, the tarot, all of which were face cards, came to be used only for fortune telling. For playing games, a new deck was devised. The number of cards was reduced to 52, symbolic of the number of weeks in a year. 4 suits were created, the hearts, clubs, diamonds, and spades, to represent the 4 seasons. The first face cards, with pictures of royalty on them, came into being in the year 1450. The king was the highest of the face cards, followed by the queen. Next came the jack, the symbolic servant of the royal couple. During the French Revolution in the 18th century, the king and queen of France were overthrown. With the royal family eliminated, people felt they should disappear from the cards too. Cards makers began experimenting with new types of face cards. Pictures of famous people were tried, as were pictures of the gods and goddesses of Greek mythology. But none of the new face cards ever caught on. In time, everyone went back to the royal deck. Cards of today are two-headed, which makes them right-sided up whichever way they are turned. It hasn't always been that way. Two-headed cards were not invented until 1850, and it was not until after 1870 that the design became standard. For hundreds of years, the backs of cards were blank. Why? Those who used cards for gambling were afraid of being cheated. Plain white backs, they believed, were harder to mark. Not until 1850 did the decorative back designs come into use. The first educational cards appeared in 1508. When Louis XIV of France was young, he learned geography, history, and other subjects using educational decks. The lessons were printed on one side of the card, leaving the other for game playing. The popularity of cards and card playing has grown tremendously since the invention of cards by the Chinese. In the United States, more than 100 million decks of cards are sold every year. And with just one pack of ordinary cards, more than 1,000 different games can be played. Let's read some facts about the cards. Throughout history, cards have been made from many unusual materials. There have been silver cards, leather cards, even rubber cards for games in the water. When Russia was a communist country, communist leaders such as Stalin, Marx, and Lenin were pictured on face cards. The Puritan called playing cards the devil's picture book and believed it was sinful to have cards in the house. The earliest European cards were hand-painted and far too costly for most people, but in the 15th century, wood engraving was invented, which found its principal use in printing of playing cards. This made cards affordable to almost everyone. Playing cards are taxed in almost every country. In the United States, they have been taxed since 1894. I hope you like the story about cards. And next week will be about silly putty. Have a great day. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.